Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's virtual step forward on how to recruit and retain women in Ohio's manufacturing industry. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. All participant microphones have been muted upon entering the meeting. We will be recording this webinar and will share a link with all registrants after the event. Lastly, there is a chat feature which can be accessed from the bottom of your screen, where we encourage you to post discussions and resources to supplement today's conversation. If you have any questions for the panel, also please feel free to drop those in the chat as well. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce AJ Jorgensen, Vice President of Strategic Engagement at the Manufacturing Institute.
Good afternoon and welcome to Step Forward, How to Recruit and Retain Women in Ohio's Manufacturing Industry. As Katie mentioned, I am AJ Jorgensen, Vice President of Strategic Engagement at the Manufacturing Institute. Before we get started today, I want to take a moment to thank Ohio Manufacturing Workforce Partnership for sponsoring today's event and invite Sarah Tracy, Managing Director of Workforce Services at the Ohio Manufacturers Association, to just say a few words. Sarah?
Thanks so much, AJ. Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here today. As AJ said, I'm Sarah Tracy. I'm with the Ohio Manufacturers Association. I lead our workforce services. The Ohio Manufacturers Association is dedicated to protecting and growing Ohio manufacturing, and we've been doing that for more than 100 years with a deep focus on workforce development for the last 5. And we are really excited to dig into this topic today. As AJ mentioned, this event is sponsored by the Ohio Manufacturing Workforce Partnership, of which OMA is a part. This is a partnership among manufacturing sector partnerships, community colleges, other higher education institutes, and a number of other partners across the state of Ohio who are all working together on a number of initiatives, but most especially expanding opportunities for people in manufacturing careers through Earn and Learn. So we're really excited about that work, and you're going to learn a little bit about it today. Our board of directors is also committed to increasing the diversity of Ohio's manufacturing workforce. And one of the ways that we're doing this is through the Ohio Manufacturing Workforce Partnership outreach efforts. The Manufacturing Institute is a critical partner on that journey, and we're so grateful for AJ and her team and their expertise and leadership. We know that increasing and advancing women in the industry as we build the next generation of workforce is something that we all have to work together on. And so we are really proud of this partnership, excited to hear from the experts today, these women from manufacturing roles who have years of experience and can share their strategies and recommendations around closing the gender gap at all levels of the industry. We know that there are lots of growth opportunities and viable careers for women in manufacturing, but we don't know that they know that, right? So we've really got to work together to inform manufacturers and job seekers about the resources out there to recruit and retain women and the environments and manufacturing careers that are going to be inclusive and inviting for those folks. So that's what we're here to talk about. And I am not the expert, but the people you're going to hear from today are, so we're really excited. AJ is going to tell you a little bit about the numbers. How far behind are we in getting women into manufacturing careers? Then we will hear some stories from women who have been in this industry for decades in a variety of roles from the C-suite to the shop floor. And they're going to tell you what they've experienced and what they recommend for you as you're doing recruiting and retaining women. So this is just the beginning of a long conversation as we work to close the gender gap in manufacturing here in Ohio and across the country. We are excited to do this work with you. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to AJ. Thank you again for the partnership, and I can't wait to hear what everyone has to say.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you for this ongoing partnership. If we can bring back up the deck, I just wanted to, as Sarah mentioned, just go through a few of the slides to give some context about why we're having this important discussion today. So the first is who we are. So the Manufacturing Institute is the workforce and education partner of the NAM. Really what we're focused on is making sure that our manufacturing industry has the most competitive workforce possible. So what we say is we're dedicated to supporting the workforce of today and growing the workforce of tomorrow. We're tied to the National Association of Manufacturers, which you probably know, the largest industrial trade association in the country. The Manufacturing Institute, we focus on our programs with 4 key areas: women, veterans, students, and workers. Perfect. Just to give you a sense, for students, we are always working on changing the perception of manufacturing. So actually, we were just in Ohio with our Creators Wanted campaign. It's our largest campaign to date to build the workforce of tomorrow, right? Inspire, educate, empower the next generation of creators in the US today. Manufacturing Day is the first Friday of every October, and that's truly where manufacturers open their doors to students, parents, teachers, and just show the opportunities that manufacturing has. When it comes to veterans, we've had several events together with OMA as well, including our Heroes Make America program, which is all about educating transitioning service members, veterans, and their spouses about what today's careers actually look like, and then connect them directly to great companies across the country. For workers, we've recently took over stewardship of the Federation of Advanced Manufacturing Education, or FAME, which trains students and current manufacturing employees that are seeking to advance their skills through what we would consider to be an apprenticeship program. And then, of course, there is the second chance hiring. This is actually not on the slide yet because it is so new, but we just created a partnership with Stand Together to look at the second chance population as another way to close the skills gap. And then finally, why we're here today. So our STEP Women's Initiative, our partnership with OMA and OMWP is all about closing this giant talent gap that we have in our industry, and that is the gender gap. We know that there's an opportunity to hear from industry leaders, connect with peers, learn best practices to bring back to your companies, but also educate companies on what they can do to better recruit and retain women. Currently, if I can do the current landscape, we have about 50%, women are about 50% of the labor force of the United States. But in manufacturing, we're still under 30%, somewhere between 27 and 29%, depending on the COVID numbers. In Ohio, we see similar numbers according to BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Men make up about 70% of the manufacturing workforce, and women make under 30%. Ohio overall in 2020, 20.5% of employed men are in manufacturing, but only 9.1% of women. There's a huge gap. So when we talk about the almost 900,000 open jobs right now we have across the industry, we look at what our largest talent opportunity, and that's women. In fact, one of the scary stats, and you see it here, is if we can bring in just 10% more women into this industry, we could close that overall skills gap, those open jobs, by more than 50%. But the pandemic made things harder. So according to BLS, we have almost 2 million women that have dropped out of the labor force amidst the pandemic. And now we're seeing that 75% of women who left the workforce have no intention of returning. That's the scary number, is they're not planning to come back. We also found from Deloitte that nearly 1 in 4 are contemplating leaving the workforce. It's almost twice as much as men. So there's an issue, and it's an issue that we're very, very familiar with. So we're here today to learn from experts, hear directly from women in the manufacturing industry. Each one comes with a unique perspective, but I'm sure you're going to hear commonalities across the board on the opportunities that the industry has provided them and the challenges that they faced as they navigated their careers. So today, we're going to begin hearing from an esteemed colleague who's going to share her story, why she entered the industry in the first place, and what her career has been like. Hopefully, this can help provide some perspective on what we can be doing better, how we can showcase opportunities to young women looking for a career, and then how we can better retain talented women. So I'm excited to introduce Edie Buchanan, a marketing strategist at Brisk Heat Corporation in Columbus. Edie, would you like to share your story?
Thank you, AJ, and welcome to everyone here. The number one question I've been asked on job interviews is, how does someone with a degree in secondary education end up in a position with engineering? My answer has been, it all boils down to interest and opportunity. So I'd like to tell you about my career path and why I say interest and opportunity played a huge role. From the time I was small, I remember being interested in taking things apart. I didn't want to change the clothes on my Barbie doll. I wanted to hyperextend her leg to see how far I could bend it before it broke. As I grew older, my curiosity developed into taking radios apart and hoping I didn't have any extra pieces when I put them back together. I did get a degree in secondary education, but it didn't match really what my interests were. So I left the profession. A quick story as to why I went back to college for engineering. One evening I was working at a Radio Shack store and I had a male customer come in. He handed me an electrical schematic and said, "I need all the parts on here to build this project." When I told him I couldn't read a schematic, he made some kind of disparaging remarks about women in the workforce, and he left. That night, I took home a book on electronics, and after starting to read it, thought it was pretty interesting and figured I would try and pursue a career in engineering. A year later, I had the opportunity to work as an intern at NASA Lewis Research Center in Cleveland, which is now Glenn, which tells you how old I am. In the 2 years I was there, I also worked in their mechanical systems and their propulsion areas. Something else very important happened at the same time. There was a student chapter of the Society of Manufacturing Engineering that was forming at Lorain County Community College, where I was going to school, and I joined. My membership provided me with opportunities to meet other students and allowed me to network with engineering professionals. My SME contacts assisted me with finding a job after graduation, and as you'll hear, has continued to be a strong influence in my life. I've heard successful people talk about the importance of learning other aspects of your employer's business. I couldn't agree more. I worked for North American Combustion for 23 years, and I went from being a draftsman to being the product manager of one of their most sophisticated burner products. In between, I worked in the research and development lab, and I also did some technical writing. I volunteered for every field assignment I could because I knew they would provide opportunities for learning. During this time, my team was recognized by our parent company with the Innovation Award, and I also received a Step Ahead Award from the Manufacturing Institute. So thank you very much for that. I can't say that working in the field was always easy. 20 years ago, it was very unusual to see a woman in steel-toed boots and fire-resistant coveralls. As a matter of fact, it was almost impossible to find them in women's sizes. I didn't expect to be treated differently because I was a woman, but it was my performance that helped me earn the respect of my customers that resulted in me being treated as an equal to my male counterparts. I envy the young women entering the engineering workforce today because I think they have less hurdles and they have opportunities that I didn't. Kind of as a perspective for this, I asked one of my coworkers, younger and female, what she felt like when she was going out into the field to work with our customers. Her reply was, "When I'm working with male customers to share my knowledge of our products, I feel empowered." They don't see her as a woman trying to sell a product, but rather as a knowledgeable person trying to help them solve a problem. That's kind of nice to hear. So now you know why I attribute my career transition to interest and opportunity. My latest opportunity came 4 years ago when I joined Brisk Heat. My talent for writing, coupled with my knowledge of temperature controllers, helped me to secure a position in our sales and marketing department. I think there was one other thing that tipped the scales in my favor. While I was waiting for my second interview at Brisk Heat's lobby, I saw a copy of SME's Manufacturing Engineering magazine on the table. During my interview, I casually mentioned to the vice president of sales and marketing that if I was hired, every time that magazine was opened, the reader would see Brisk Heat next to my name. Not only did I join SME as a student, but I found enough value in my membership to remain a member, and I now serve on SME's International Board of Directors. I'm fortunate to be working for a company that has a female workforce about equal to the number of men. We don't have any special initiatives to hire women, but I do think when you're interviewing and see a lot of other women working in the company, you have a good feeling about joining. This includes having female managers being part of the interviewing process. Since we have an audience of diverse backgrounds, let me summarize what I hope to leave each of you with. So if you're a student, whether it be high school or college, be open to the opportunities presented. Try to take a variety of classes, even if they're not part of your degree curriculum. My major was electrical engineering, but electives in mechanical engineering and manufacturing engineering provided me with more options after graduation. For the emerging professionals, it's rare that you'll remain at the same company for 23 years. It is the experiences that you'll get along the way that will help you make or find the opportunities that will match your interests. At least it did for me. Whether it be on-the-job training or virtual classrooms, take advantage of any learning experiences that you can. Take the time to encourage younger women by volunteering for initiatives such as First Robotics and Skills USA. By all means, join a professional association to expand your knowledge and your network. Many associations offer classes with reduced pricing for members, such as SME's Tooling You. SME also offers a lot of educational webinars, and I happen to be moderating one on Thursday evening titled An Overview of Composite Manufacturing for Industry. So people that are interested in composites, log in at 6 o'clock on Thursday night. For the human resources professionals, new female hires should be paired with female mentors so that if there are concerns, these women are more likely to share with them. Also, be sure to provide the same opportunities that should be available for women as they are for men. This includes career growth opportunities and the flexibility needed for a better work-life balance. This can make a huge difference in recruiting and retaining not only women, but younger workers as well. Encourage your companies to support membership in professional societies. It's said that if you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. I say if you pursue your career, your interests, and look for opportunities, you can have a successful engineering career, even if your degree is in secondary education. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Edie. I will add that the advice that you said to take a variety of classes, join the professional association, right on point. But I especially love that you said the importance of female to female mentorships. We have seen through 60 plus studies that while we love male mentors and we love male sponsors, there is a critical component to have female to female mentorship. So your advice is spot on, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Next, I do want to open for a panel discussion. We are honored to have two panelists, both Dale and Samantha from Star Manufacturing and from Kennametal, joining us in a conversation to get to know each other a little bit better, hear about our stories, and talk about the opportunities and challenges that manufacturing face. So the first thing that I want to do is introduce and have you give a little bit about your background. And I will start with Dale. You want to tell us a little bit about yourself and your history?
Sure. Well, I was born in New Orleans and back in the dark ages, and things were so different then than they are now. For instance, when I was in high school, I was in all-state marching band, and we had to go to LSU for about a week. And we had to walk from the dorm all the way over to the practice field, but we weren't allowed to wear pants to walk across campus, even during summer session. So we had to wear skirts over our pants, take the skirts off on the practice field and put them back on to go back over to the dorm, because we also weren't allowed to wear the skirts on the practice field. So that's the kind of crazy things that have happened. I made my way to Texas, then Germany, and now back to Ohio about 21 years ago. And my husband and I actually own Star Manufacturing, which is how I got into Star Manufacturing. Interestingly, like Edie, one of my majors was secondary education. Another was English. And those two things have helped me so much in manufacturing. I ran some organizations, some nonprofit organizations back in Texas, and did some other things in Germany. But I ended up loving manufacturing. I always say that it's you either love manufacturing or you hate it, because it's fast paced, it's challenging, it changes daily. You have to be creative. You have to be able to roll with the flow and come up with solutions constantly. And I have worked throughout the company in logistics and virtually every aspect except engineering of manufacturing, the kind that we do. We produce oil field and energy equipment, and we have a lot of welders and fitters and people who work with metal. So we have a lot of skilled employees, and I have not done their jobs and not done engineering, but a lot of the other jobs here. My primary, though, interest goes back to teaching. Education and English, being able to write and being able to express ideas and write policies and procedures and help teach people and become involved with all sorts of educational activities and organizations has been a real help for our company, for our community, and for the people in our community. I'll go into some people who have worked here, some women who have worked here on the plant floor when you ask another question. But those things have been very, very helpful. And one thing I want to let everybody know is I understand there are a lot of HR professionals on this video conference. So if you are looking at a woman to join your team, don't rule anyone out who doesn't have the experience or the degree. Like Edie and like myself, you may find just the right person with the right interest and skills who can adapt to what you need and learn. And as long as they can learn, they might be a great asset for your company.
I love that. Don't cut out your talent before they actually start. Samantha, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and where you come from in Kennemetal?
Yeah, so just like both of the previous two women here, I do not have a degree in engineering in any way, shape, or form. My degree is in economics with minors in finance and operational excellence. So prior to joining Kennemetal, I actually worked as a lean facilitator, part of a continuous improvement department at a hospital in Westmoreland County in Pennsylvania. After that, I came on and joined Kennemetal. I was part of a rotational program within Kennemetal. So I did 3 8-month rotations. My first one was in sourcing. I learned really quick. I am not a fan of sourcing, but that's good. It's good to know what you don't like too. My second rotation was here in Solon, Ohio, where I work now, doing a lot of improvement projects and working with the shop floor a lot. I created a new department, which I now run, which is the preset department, where we preset all of the tooling and material that our machinists need prior to going to the machining operation. And then my third rotation was at our Ashboro plant doing project management. So I did that for 2 years, and then I came back to Solon full time. I've been here for about 2.5 years full time now as a engineering supervisor. So I am over our preset department and over our processors in the engineering group. So that's a little bit about me.
I love that. I love that you covered all of your bases and figured out what you don't like. So one of my first questions is, why Ohio? What brought you specifically to Ohio? Was it family, the job, friends? What was it?
So I was born and raised in Ohio, right actually near where Star Manufacturing is. I was born and raised in Warren, Ohio. I came back to Ohio because of my family, but also during my rotational program when I lived in North Carolina, I realized that I actually just love Ohio. It was January in North Carolina and it was sunny and I didn't need a coat, and I walked out of my apartment every day with a winter coat on, not knowing what to do with myself, because I am born and bred Northeast Ohio, where if I walked out without a coat in January, I'm insane. So I couldn't imagine living anywhere else.
It was too warm in North Carolina. Noted. Okay. Dale, what about you?
Well, I actually don't like cold weather, but after 11 years in Germany and 21 years here, I'm sort of used to it. At least I know how to layer and wear very warm clothes and have good heaters. But we actually came to Ohio from Germany because my husband was transferred from Germany to a job here in Warren. And a couple of years later, he formed his own company. And then a couple of years after that, we purchased Star Manufacturing. So in 2006, we started the process to purchase Star. And then in 2007, we actually purchased it. So that's why we came to Ohio. And we have made it our home. And we do enjoy Ohio. I still like summer better than winter, though, personally.
Perfect. Okay. So we've set the stage. What I want to know specifically is, what initiatives have you seen that just are really great for creating a more inclusive environment for women, like mentorship, sponsorship, trainings, professional development? What is it that, really has gotten to you to become more inclusive for females? Dale, I think you were talking about how Star's invested in trainings of their employees from the ground up a bit.
Yes. So I became I'm involved with the Humboldt County Workforce Board, and a couple of advisory boards with some of the tech schools. And through Mahoning Valley Manufacturing Coalition, we met with a lot of school administrators and counselors, superintendents, and some teachers, and also students. And through these years, back in 2006 and 2007, it was extremely rare to see any woman be involved in any way in manufacturing unless they were in the office, maybe doing HR or maybe payroll or something like that. And then as we started spreading the word about careers and pay and opportunities, and as the training started happening for tech schools and other kinds of programs, we started seeing a few young women being interested, to the point where I would say 3 or 4 years after I started working at Star, we actually started hiring a few young women who were interested in taking courses in welding. So a couple of the women stuck to welding, a couple did not. They just did not like the work after they started the work. It is very hard. We haven't really found any women who are fitters or processors or some of the other jobs we have, but as I've gone to the schools in the last, say for instance, I was at Lincoln Electric in Cleveland about 2 months ago, and there were, in a class of say 30 students, there were probably 8 women in the class, which is such a huge difference from a few years ago. So I think the tech programs, I think the offer of income, of steady positions, of opportunities, of growth, because we've done a lot of training at STAR and we've grown employees from within and moved them up into other positions. So, and I think those opportunities are starting to appeal for young women. The other thing that I notice is that we have had to become very cognizant of quality of life, both for men and women. So, and that is huge for young women. And that's something that is going to have to happen. It's just a way of life now.
Workplace flexibility is the term of the next 18 months and the past 18 as well. Samantha, coming from your perspective, right, newer to the career, what attracted you? What do you think has worked to make you feel like you were included in this industry?
Yeah, so within Kennametal, there's not a lot of initiatives specifically around making it a more inclusive environment for women. Now, coming in, there were a lot of initiatives for young engineers and people within my rotational program or people just starting out their career to get more exposure and get a better understanding of manufacturing holistically. And I think those opportunities to get that exposure to more senior management and get that exposure to all facets of the organization really is one of the things I liked about manufacturing, really getting that broad spectrum view. But getting into manufacturing, a lot of what made me want to come into manufacturing was the growth opportunities, because manufacturing has so many growth opportunities that you don't really see in other industries as much. And then also, I personally really like seeing how what I do impacts and changes the end result of a product and seeing a physical result of what we're doing. So while we don't really have a lot of initiatives, we do have a mentorship program, a women's mentorship program within Kennametal. It's hit or miss, I would say. There is very little structure around it. So you get paired up with your mentor. I've had 2 different mentors within that program, and there's very little guidance about what you're supposed to do. And you get on a call and you're kind of like, I'm here. What are we supposed to talk about? Like, why are we here? So I think that could be something very good to have if you have the proper support around it. And I don't think that my organization is quite there yet.
So I'll go off on a little tangent. That's actually one of the most common things that we hear nationally is we know there's a huge need for female to female mentorships, but the structure, the matching, the execution, the length of it, all of those questions that are out there, there are best practices, but it is very, very difficult to implement a fully successful, we'll call it, mentoring program internally. So more to come on that, because we are actually preparing to launch something nationally that would be industry specific, but it could be cross company coming. But I hear what you're saying, and I think it's really accurate, something we hear all the time, which goes to the next question. And before I ask the next question, I just put in the chat, anybody listening to the in the audience, feel free to ask questions in the chat and I'll continue to monitor. But leading into that, Samantha, what has been the biggest burden? What's the biggest challenge or hurdle that you've had to overcome, whether that be because you're female or whether it be just because you're in manufacturing? What do you think is the biggest challenge you've had?
I think the biggest challenge for me personally is I'm just very young. So I've only been in the industry 4.5 years. Most people I work with have been here over 30 years. So they have all of this knowledge and perspective that I don't, and I couldn't from where I am. But a lot of that hurdle is knowing that I don't have that and learning it from them and absorbing as much knowledge as I can from those people who have it, because they're all retiring and we have to bring new people in who don't know all of that tribal knowledge and don't have all of those ins and outs. And we have to still function without them.
Well, I would say, Sarah, Samantha, don't lose heart, because when I first started at STAR and I would go out on the plant floor, the guys would kind of look at me like, what is she doing out here? and would kind of like humor me a little bit as if I was the novelty. Well, now I am an integral part of everything that goes on, including on the plant floor. It took a little while for me to gain respect, but once they realized that I was really adding value and could answer questions and could help and could come up with solutions, and that I was actually viable, they started changing, and now I'm fully accepted by the guys here. And at the moment on the plant floor, we only have gentlemen, but we are short-staffed, as almost everyone is, and we are actively looking for women and men both to fill those some of those positions. So I will actually be out in the schools speaking again and trying to solicit more women to join our company.
One of the things, Dale, that we talked about earlier was transparency, and the transparency in what is actually required to do specific jobs. Can you talk a little bit more about what that means to you?
Well, I think that, a couple of the women who we hired and who worked on the floor for a short time were very disappointed by the type work they had to do and by how strenuous some of the jobs were and how physically demanding they were. And also the time frame, because we bid hours basically for jobs. In other words, we have to bid a job as how many hours it will take for this process and that process. So everybody's kind of under the gun to get those jobs done in the amount of time that we're going to be paid for. So there is a bit of stress there. Plus, there's quality stress and all kinds of other things. And when we hired a couple of the women, I don't think we made it very clear how strenuous those jobs would be up front. And I think we really needed to talk more about that and not make the job sound so enticing, which was really kind of false. We really needed to be very upfront and clear about exactly what would be entailed in doing the job and what kind of struggles they would be up against before they ever came to work. Maybe even trying, just letting someone coming, shadowing for a couple of days, maybe talking to some of the people, maybe even trying their hand at a couple of things, just to see if they would like the job. I know one young woman just could not weld for 8 hours a day. I mean, we do have breaks. We have 3 breaks, but she could not. And our employees are free to go to the restroom or go get something to drink anytime. But she could not weld. She just could not do it. She actually would start crying, and that did not help the image of women with the guys on the floor. So I think in her case, we really did a bad job of hiring her because I don't think we painted the picture clearly. So I think that's absolutely imperative that people coming into a manufacturing company know what the challenges are and how difficult it can be.
It's one of the key values of Manufacturing Day is opening up. A lot of manufacturing plants are brick buildings with not a ton of windows, and so opening up those doors is like, this is what the environment is. And we hear that from all sides, whether that be welding or pharma, where they're in clean suits all day. I mean, there are different challenges that we face. Okay, so flipping this a little bit more positive, and I see, Vicki, your question.
Headset.
When we talk
Oh, yeah.
about
Open them, it says my speaker's not working.
it, can somebody make sure we're all muted?
No, why wouldn't it?
We know that 30% of the women manufacturing actually.
Same as system head.
Can we make, is everybody muted? Okay, of the 30% of women in manufacturing, we know that the vast majority of that 30%, somewhere between 18 and 20% of women, aren't in production. They're in, right, everybody probably knows this, they're in admin, they're in marketing, they're in finance, they're in all these other roles. And even, and I think you guys both alluded to this, when they start in production, they end up shifting to non-production roles. It's a pretty common challenge. And, Dale, you talked earlier about workplace flexibility being one of the key reasons of why that continues. But as we have this huge challenge, this huge gender gap, what advice do you have for manufacturers that are actively looking to expand their specifically female employee base?
I would say that one of the conversation has to be about realistic time. And, you know, we're kind of, our hands are kind of tied because we really aren't supposed to ask about children or childcare or anything like that. But we have to be realistic about it. You know, maybe ask a question like, well, what would you need time-wise to be able to work, that kind of thing, without really going into detail. And we have to be, for instance, we're trying more and more to either have 4 longer days or 5 longer days and not have to work so many Saturdays. You know, sometimes we have to anyway. But when we can offer some flexibility in scheduling and knowing, you know, offer that and make sure that people are not going to be penalized if they do have to call off for childcare or something like that. That has got to be part of the conversation. But I also have to say, it's having to be part of the conversation with younger men as well, because many of them are helping their wives do those things and taking off. And some of the older, I hate to put it that way, but they're all younger than me. I'm older than everybody on the floor. But anyway, some of the older men don't understand that, especially some of the older managers. They just think it's like the old days. And how can you take off for childcare? What do you mean? Your wife should do that. Well, no, that's not always the case. So it's a conversation in general, not just for women, but I think to entice women into the workforce, we are going to have those conversations. And I see Samantha agreeing.
Yeah, so we shifted to a 7-day operation over the summer. So we have a 4-10 schedule, and then we have a 3-12 schedule over our weekends. And 90% of the people in production are men. And even with all of those men, we saw a lot of childcare issues get brought up when we were shifting schedule. In the chat, I saw somebody mention about daycare is not opening till 6 a.m. Our 10-hour shift on Monday through Thursdays starts at 5 a.m. It's from 5 to 3. So there is a lot of challenges that go along with that, and knowing where your flexibility can be, and if you can do split shifts and that kind of thing to work with people as best you can, because people want to work if given the ability to.
And that's a good point too, with the 5 a.m. childcare. That is an issue. It's even been an issue for some of our men. If their wives are working and their wives are to the point where they can't take off, or they have a job where it's critical that they're there too, we have had some men call off or say, I can't be there until 8 o'clock or 7:30 if they were supposed to work at 6 for the same reason. And it's even more critical for women in general to, because those are the questions they actually will ask in the interview.
I'm so thrilled that you guys talked about essentially what all these flexibility options, whether it be job sharing or split shifts or changing the schedules, because I do see that across the board, that especially because of COVID, everybody knows about the flexibility that has been afforded to non-production staff. And so we're seeing that continuous push for production staff as well. So I know we're almost at the end. I do want to ask one final question, and that is essentially, what advice do you have to give young women who are just starting their careers? Samantha, I'll start with you. What would you two tell someone who's right up behind you?
My big thing is, don't be intimidated by all of these people who have all of this experience in front of you. Like, you do bring value. You wouldn't be there if you don't. So go in there, be the boss that you are, and go and bring the value that you know you can bring. I'm trying to be PG over here. Sorry, I do not have the cleanest vocabulary.
Be a boss, babe. Got it.
There we go. I'm like, I don't know where to go with this.
Well, I think that's fabulous advice. And I think another thing is, don't just do what you're assigned to do, go beyond. Try to learn, as Edie did. She learned a lot more, decided that she would follow her interests, follow her heart, and then make that part of her goal and part of her path. And I think volunteer for some other things, get involved in anything you can. If you come up with a great idea, do not be afraid to present it. Learn how to present it maybe in your particular company, but don't ever be afraid, and definitely go beyond what just what's required. Absolutely. Come up with an idea, share your ideas. Everybody has value. Everybody has good ideas. Some work, some don't, but don't ever be afraid to move beyond what you've been assigned.
Great. And obviously you can see the chat. This has been a great conversation. Thank you both so much for the advice. I think you're both spot on with continue to push forward, walk in with confidence, Samantha, and always go above and beyond and see what you can actually achieve. This has been a fantastic conversation. So thank you both so much for joining us today. I appreciate the time and the energy you gave.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Before we wrap, and I know that we're getting closer to time, we wanted to share some true tangible resources that are available today. And so I'm going to be joined by two colleagues, Casey Roach, the Director of Partnerships and Client Engagement at the New Growth Group, HW, and Bernie Goski, the Project Manager at Ohio TechNet at Lorain County Community College, which we just heard about. First, I just wanted to share that at the Manufacturing Institute, we do have an entire platform specifically to close the gender gap. You can see our link here. It includes a national awards system where we honor 100 women and 30 emerging leaders, 30 under 30, as well as events such as this, both virtual and regional events. We have an online platform to engage, to share new data, to share new research. We will be coming out with research and report next year about workplace flexibility as well as childcare, gathering all those best practices at this time from manufacturers directly. But Casey and Bernie, did you want to share a little bit about the resources that you have available locally? That would be great.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you so much for giving us an opportunity. We're very pleased to join you today. So at Hard-Hatted Women, hearing so much in the speakers and everyone's stories about the importance of mentors and role models. And so we have a resource called the Role Model Speakers Bureau. At HHW, we always say you can't be what you can't see. And so role model speakers are women who are employed in all different fields within manufacturing. So on the production floor, on the non-production side, and they just tell their story to women in the community to raise awareness of what it's actually like to work in manufacturing, to demystify this industry and to really, talk about their journey, what worked for them, how they solved issues like childcare, how they got around, school bus and, school drop off. So thinking through all of those challenges, and then we often find our role model speakers serve as informal mentors for women who are just coming up into the field. We are always looking for role model speakers. So if you are interested, please let me know. My email is right there, director@hhwohio.org, or you can check out more on our website. And we also have been working in partnership with Lorain County Community College. My colleague Bernie is here to join me on a new website called Wise Career Pathways. This was a program that HHW Ohio developed and then LCCC expanded. So I'm going to hand it off to Bernie to talk a little bit more about our partnership and the new website.
Bernie?
Thanks, Casey. Thank you so much. I just popped my email address in the chat box. So for those of you who are interested in wondering, like, how am I going to source this talent? Where am I going to find these women? It's great to know that women are interested in these careers. However, I don't know how to connect with these women. And that's where Wise Pathways can come in. And Wise Pathways is a program that is a career exploration program to let women know about these in-demand careers that probably never have been on their wavelength at all, you know. So these are women who, as AJ said at the top of the program, they've left the workforce, and now they're trying to figure out how do they find their way back. So maybe instead of going back to retail, hospitality, and other low-wage careers, this is our moment. This is our opportunity to inform them about what does it look like to work in manufacturing? What does it feel like to be a woman in a male-dominated career? And how can you find success in that? And in these times when wages are creeping up, which is a great thing for the workers, if it's $15 an hour at Target and $15 an hour for an entry-level position in manufacturing, don't stay at Target, because you're going to be at $15 an hour for a good long time at Target. You will not have that same career pathway that manufacturing will afford you, or the same opportunity for continued training and upskilling, and the benefits of, many women have never had paid time off, an opportunity for tuition reimbursement. Many have cobbled together lots of part-time jobs just to make that flexibility factor work. So if any of you are interested in learning more about Wise Pathways, we have just launched a new website. But additionally, we're looking for pilot locations around the state who are interested in convening women of all across the spectrum, young women, career changing women, older women, and letting them know of the opportunities that are available in manufacturing and setting them up to be successful in those careers. So my email address is in the chat, and please feel free to contact me. We had a robust session here at Lorain County Community College today, and that's just right before this session. And we had a group of students talking about manufacturing, and some of their apprehensions are, could they find another woman mentor within manufacturing? Could they find somebody who was young? So maybe there may be women in their 40s, 50s, 60s working in manufacturing, but could they find somebody in their 20s that are working? So, and our advice to them was, this is our call to action. We need these students to go out and bring their friends in. We need people we need the buzz to start. Tell your mom, tell your sister, tell your cousin, tell your neighbor that this is what we need to do. So we're excited about it, and we'd love to have anybody who's on this call and would like more information on starting a Wise Pathways program in your region to please contact me.
Perfect. Thank you so much. This is great information. I will emphasize that we know that there is going to be a plethora of people, of women, specifically working moms, specifically coming back into what we call those on-ramps back into an industry. So HAW and Wise Pathways are great opportunities to get engaged, to support. I really encourage you reaching out and making those connections. So that is it for today. I do again want to thank Edie and Dale and Samantha for your time, for your candid conversation and your great advice. I want to thank Ohio Manufacturing Association and OWMP for the support today and for bringing us together to talk about something as critical and important as closing the gender gap in manufacturing. So thank you all, and I hope to connect at another time.